The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy is a difficult game. Without continues or the ability to save your progress, each life lost is a serious matter. Luckily, there's a well-known glitch that gives the player partial immunity to damage. In today's episode of NES Secrets Revealed, we'll break down why that glitch happens and identify its limitations. Let's get some basic stuff out of the way first, though. When Dizzy gets hit, his damage bar rises. When Dizzy's damage value reaches or exceeds 96, he dies. You may have noticed that it keeps rising for a brief period of time after Dizzy gets hit by some enemies. That happens because the game doesn't have a single damage counter. Instead, it has two. One for Dizzy's actual damage, and a second one for damage displayed. When some enemies, such as a guillotine, hit Dizzy, his actual damage counter gets updated immediately, and a special status bar flag is set. Whenever that flag is set, the status bar stops displaying items so that it can display Dizzy's damage meter instead. During that time, the game tests the two counters against each other. If the display damage is lower than the actual damage counter, the display damage is increased by 1. Once the two counters are at the same value, the flag is cleared and the status bar returns to normal after an extra period of 100 frames. This was probably coded that way to limit the amount of hits with specific enemies and to make sure that each hit deals an amount of guaranteed damage. Only some enemies are coded to use this behavior. Let's take the spider as an example. When Dizzy gets hit by a spider, his damage counter is increased by 20. There are two conditions for that hit to register. First, Dizzy must be within the spider's hitbox. Second, the two damage counters need to contain the same value. These being the only requirements for getting hit means that if we could somehow desync those counters and clear the status bar flag, we could gain damage immunity against any enemies that are coded in this way. Luckily for us, there's a very easy way to do so. We start the counter desync process by taking damage from a selected source. Next, we need to press select before the damage bar stops increasing. Doing so brings up a description submenu. The submenu is coded so it always displays damage in status bar regardless of the status bar flag state. However, as the submenu is programmed to always show the damage bar, exiting that menu is programmed to always clear the status bar flag. Thus, entering and exiting the submenu while taking damage will clear the status bar flag. As a result, the two damage counters are now desynced, so the conditions needed for a spider to hit Dizzy are never met again, and thus no damage is dealt. This glitch can be triggered by any damage source, as long as the damage dealt doesn't reach 96, killing Dizzy. Even healing sources, such as fruit and diamonds, can be used since the function to heal is the same function that damages Dizzy. The only difference being that healing values are negative to the damage counter. The following are the safest sources to trigger the glitch from. Fruit and diamonds, obviously. The city guard. The armorog. Seamus the leprechaun. The dragon's fireballs. Water drops. Fish, ants, rats, and crabs, since they share the same code, spiders, which we've already discussed, and guillotines. Just keep in mind that guillotines deal a whopping 50 units of damage, so don't try to use one of these if your damage bar is already half full. There are a few riskier triggers as well. Volcano fragments, birds, bats, and squid are much harder to use since they don't deal knockback to push Dizzy out of harm's way or compare damage counters to deal damage, meaning the glitch won't protect you from them either. It's still possible to use them, but you have to open the submenu at just the last moment to make sure that they don't hit you again when you close it. Keep in mind, this glitch only protects you from hazards that compare counters to deal damage, which aren't many of the dangers that Dizzy faces. In fact, it will only protect you from ants, rats, and crabs, spiders, water droplets, guillotines, and fish. If you take damage in any other way, you'll need to trigger the glitch again. In all, even though exploiting this glitch won't make the fantastic adventures of Dizzy a walk in the park, with the right precautions, it can make it a bit more forgiving of an experience. As always, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more NES Secrets Revealed.